sorry for the...
So insistent.
Bit temperamental. Wow! The jump is... Ow!
Hello. If the good fairy granted wishes to television reporters, I suspect many would ask for an extra pair of eyes, somewhere at the back. How useful they would be for the dreaded statement to camera. You can be word perfect, you can be delivering with style and conviction. And it's all unusable, because behind, unbeknown to you, some pillock is making a complete mockery out of what is supposed to be a very serious business. Here's a classic example from the BBC archives. Telling it how it is, cue Desmond Wilcox.
The 2nd Airborne Division of the American Army are among the toughest troops in the world, held at what is known as instant readiness. Not 1 week's notice, not 1 day's notice, not 1 hour's notice to go into action, but instant notice. The American Army has a long history of arriving just in time to save the day, and it goes right back to the days of the earliest settlers, when traditionally the cavalry would gallopade in with the bugles blowing and colours flying to save the settlers. And the American soldier has always been an integrated part of the American way of life.
It's likely that Tootle and Coates Viella will still have a hurdle to jump.
Television directors are always trying to tart up the camera statement. Don't just stand there, do something. Hence, walking and talking at the same time. Simple enough?
This part of the bridge that the parents are particularly concerned about, the part that leads down a steep slope of an old coal tip, down to the river and the railway bridge, all irresistible. You see what I mean?
Got it! Will you be going away again, Ian?
Nope.
Plan to stay at home now for a bit, do you?
Yeah.
Are you sorry for the...
Yeah.
And the exit itself came further back.
What we're actually waiting for is for the dogs to go on... I'll try that again. What we're actually waiting for is for the dogs to go on point. In other words, to stand and wait, and it's possible then that they've picked up a scent. Our job is then to catch them up and see what's in front of them.
They're looking for capercaillie, shy game birds that spend a lot of their time on the ground. Just like some reporters.
What we're actually waiting for is for the dogs to go on point. In other words, to stand still. Well, we've been out on this estate now for something like 4.5 hours. It's an estate where we hoped we'd see capercaillie. We've had flies round us, we've had rain, we've had scents picked up by dogs, but they've not been able to track down any capercaillie. We've not seen any capercaillie. We've been travelling around for the past few days around various parts of Scotland, and still we haven't seen a capercaillie. I think there's more chance of finding a haggis.
They say that you're not really sportsmen at all. You're really just sheer entertainers. You shouldn't really be classed as sportsmen. And to be quite honest, you're really just overweight ballet dancers. Anyone could be.
I'll show you what an overweight ballet dancer can do, shall I?
Well, you should be a sportsman.
To make interviews more interesting. It's all a fix, of course, but there is an element of danger.
Let me speak a bit. I can't speak, they can't hear me. Loosen it slightly, a bit more so they can hear my voice properly. A bit more, Scrub, so they can hear me properly, Scrub.
Just a bit more,
so they can hear me properly. So they can hear me. You have to give me a tiny bit more so I can speak properly, Scrub.
Yeah, a bit more, sir.
A little bit more, so...
Let him right off so he can see.
Okay, now, at the very end of it, Scrub, you can do a little bit more pressure, but not an awful lot. Okay?
Absolutely magnificent morning here as we're setting off from Portsmouth Harbour to go and meet HMS Ledbury. It's very calm at the moment, although apparently there are some high winds out there, but they say never go to sea on an empty stomach, so I've had a big breakfast and eaten a lot of oranges, because I gather they taste exactly the same coming up as they do going down. I'm not at all worried, it's very calm, beautiful day. Well, the forecasters was wrong. It's a mere 4-7 now, and that doesn't seem to have worried most of the crew on board. But now, getting back into Spithead, I think I've got something in common with Lord... I'm sorry, excuse me.
The trouble with the Lake District, apart from the weather, is there's just too much of it. And another thing, there are farm... I'll just go and get this.
Okay. Customs men, or revenue men as they were then called... Start again. Customs men, or revenue men as they were often called in those days... Sorry,
it's through.
Customs men, or revenue men as they were called, often had to engage in fierce hand-to-hand combat to overcome the smuggler. Forcibly overboard... Right.
Take 6.
Forcibly boarding a boat was the only way they could lay their hands on the untaxed brandy coming up the Thames from France.
Bloody oars!
It's all too much. Trying to be helpful, somebody suggests tying a rope to the boat and hauling it in.
Customs men, or revenue men as they were then called, often had to engage in fierce hand-to-hand combat to overpower the smugglers. Forcibly boarding a boat was the only way they could lay their hands on the untaxed brandy coming up the river from France.
I like that.
The Metropolitan Police asked this firm to produce a simulated petrol bomb. It had to look as much like the real thing as possible, but at the same time be safe, so that if it went off at the feet of the user, they came up with this. So that if it went off at the feet of officers who were undergoing riot training, or indeed in the hand of the user, I think we're going to need a match on this. They came up with this. It has a flare. And when thrown, it explodes in a harmless burst of sawdust. That's why we need the second one.
Waiting for gravity to separate oil and water obviously isn't ideal. It'd be far more efficient if you could give gravity a helping hand. To separate oil and water obviously isn't ideal. It'd be far more efficient if you could give gravity a helping hand.
I'm actually here to tell you all about a series called All About Me. And it was one of the highlights of Going Live, you may remember, and it features, ooh, what? God, all sorts of things.
It was indeed a golden age of radio comedy, with shows like Round the Horn and The Goons. And that golden age is still very much with us. Weekending, the news headlines, and, you know, what's the, you know, the news headline? Just a minute. I know the one. I know it. I'm sorry, I'll read that again.
Hello. I'd like to introduce you to them.
What's been the most difficult drum that you've ever had to do?
I suppose about a 5-foot diameter one.
5 foot in diameter? Yeah. That's as tall as me, aren't it?
Virtually, yeah.
How long did it take to do?
About a week, but about a month getting it together.
How did you get it down the stairs?
Halfway down the stairs and then out through a window.
Oh, you actually... That was the only way out, is it?
Sorry.
How did you get it down the stairs?
You
Gone was the posh flocked wallpaper, the velvet drapes and the carpeting. Here it was all peeling paintwork and pipes and props. He could hear the faint smell... No. Sorry.
Going back to the big bass drum that you played. Hang on, I can't clear. Going back to the big bass drum. How did you manage to get it?
Since then, it's moved on to a much bigger, more prestigious... Then, it returned to the Opera House, which it continued to... Then, it returned to the...
How did you manage to get it out?
Anything particular about gardening you like? What kind of flowers, for example?
I like the actual digging. The real heavy stuff is what I really, really like. And, of course, what I really like as well is a bonfire, but we're not allowed them these days, are we?
But if you like the digging, perhaps you should come round and dig my gardens. That's the bit I absolutely
Is it a large one?
Well, I think, yes, gardening, of course. Yes, it's very big. It's surrounded by a wall, and goodness knows where else as well. Now...
Then...
One of the most unnatural jobs for a reporter involves noddies, police things, and reverse questions. These are useful for fast editing. Since there's only one camera, they're shot after the interview when the interviewee has gone. Often the questions are directed at an empty chair. It's a silly setup, which can sometimes seem so ludicrous even the most experienced reporters can't cope. Here's the king of the corpses, Laurie Mayer.
Why is your committee insisting on minesweepers when so many people in Jersey, well, at least two... Sorry, say when, Chris. I'll get it together. There was a question. There was a question, and it was something along the lines of, you know, why do you want a minesweeper when so many people think that a helicopter would be more useful? Right. Right. Sorry, you're... All right. Is it rolling? Fine, okay. It's still running. The question is something along the lines about why is your committee so insistent on a I'll get it next time. I nearly, I was halfway there, wasn't I? Right. Right. Why is... I'm sorry about this. I'm sorry about this.
A well-known professional criminal and drug user was supplied with drugs. Sorry, I've got the wrong page. According to Mr. Brian Walsh QC, opening the case for the defence. According to Mr. Brian Walsh QC, opening the case for the prosecution. Those offences, according to Mr. Brian Walsh QC, opening the case for the prosecution this morning, were committed in the late 1970s, when a known professional criminaler, three of the other 5 officers on trial were also cleared for... Moore was said to have pressed cannabis supplied by 2 of the defendants into the hand of a 22-year-old pop fan who... Oh, I can't...